Okay, we are recording. My name is Mandy Thompson. I will be acting as your instructional coach today. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, telling me what you teach.
Okay, so my name is Destiny Dent. I currently teach fifth grade and I teach just reading and writing for Atlanta Public Schools.
Awesome. Well, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you again for taking the time to meet with me today. I've heard that you have a couple of concerns that you about. Hopefully, I can help you with. So, if you wouldn't mind just kind of, telling me a little bit about what's going on.
So about a week or two ago, I got a observation from my assistant principal, and
Mhm.
then we had a debriefing meeting. So in my extended planning, we have changed the framework to make sure that I actually get to small groups. But when she came in for an observation, I did not get to small groups. So in the debriefing meeting, basically she was just asking like, what is stopping me from getting to small groups? What support do I need to make sure that I'm getting to small group? And my number one barrier is just learning how and when to cut it off. Like just feel like I can never get to a clear stopping point. So I'm just looking for some support or strategies with finding a clear stopping point, or is that even a thing? And ways to effectively make sure that I get to small groups consistently.
Yeah, I think, time is our biggest enemy for sure. So do you typically do your small groups at the end of your reading block?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have like a timer that you possibly set for yourself that like reminds you like, oh, this is like my designated time to stop, or anything like that?
I have used the timer before and the timer would go off and I would stop it and keep going.
Okay. Maybe, maybe we even tell our students, like maybe they get into the mindset of knowing, like, hey, when this timer goes off, keep me accountable to know that this is our time to move into small group instruction. This is our time for us to work on our skills, like more one-on-one, more focused in our groups, and maybe make it also an accountability thing for them, especially since you teach fifth grade. I feel like they are old enough to be able to be like, hey, Miss Dent, like, your timer went off, like, let's do our small groups. And sometimes that may feel a little silly, but I think it also might give them a little bit more accountability for their own learning to um, to make sure that you're trying to stay as on track as possible. I know I sometimes make my students do the same thing because I struggle with time as well.
I like that idea because they're always trying to tell me what to do anyway. So
Yeah. So this time, let them tell you what to do, right? Have when you met with your assistant, did you guys come up with any strategies then that you've been trying to implement or have been thinking about doing?
so this week I actually have extended planning, so I have it every other week. And I have
Mhm.
it tomorrow. So tomorrow's when I will sit down with my instructional coach and we'll come up with a plan. Because she was in the meeting as well. And one thing that we came to an agreement was that I planned so heavily for whole group instruction. So we're going to sit down to dissect that and make sure that I'm only spending about 20 minutes whole group
Mhm.
and then the rest of my time being spent in small group.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just making sure that you have that mini lesson that covers the overall broad idea of the learning objective, and then really being able to touch on those like specific things that each of your students needs, because the small group instruction in general is for that, right? And so that's definitely important that you're making it a priority and that you already know that it's a priority, which pat on the back for you. Like it's like that's a priority. So I would just make sure that, like you said, that you sit down and you really think about it, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know what your classroom looks like, but it sounds to me like your students would keep you accountable. And it sounds like with that in place, that it would probably help a lot. And then your planning as well.
Mhm. Because I have three different classes. So I have a class where it's the gifted core cohort and then a little bit of general ed, and then my second group is general ed, and then my last group is EIB. full EIP classroom. And so
Oh,
in
wow.
that class, everything is done in small group because I have a co-teacher with me, and nothing would ever
Hmm.
be able to get done in whole group. Which
Yeah.
kind of leads me to my next concern or talking point.
Sure.
So ways to differentiate with extreme below grade level students. So like in the IEP classroom, at least I have a total of 14 students, but I have at least 5 students who can't even recognize their letter sounds.
That's hard.
So trying to come up with ways to still expose them to 5th grade standards, but meet them where they are, I'm really struggling there.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard question, and I think that's something that tugs at all of our educators' heartstrings, because it's like, you know what you need to be teaching them, but you also know that there's huge gaps there. So that's definitely hard. So have you tried doing more of a discussion-based lesson with them as their like instruction, rather than necessarily doing it on like pencil and paper or whiteboard, since they don't necessarily have a lot of that?
Yes, and I definitely see that they comprehend and are able to respond verbally, but of course, writtenly or on assessment, they don't perform well. So the only issue with a discussion-based classrooms environment with that is when it comes to their interventions. I
Mhm.
don't have data to support, hey, they need more supports that need to go up a tier.
Yeah.
So that's why I can't really rely on the discussion-based classroom
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, that's hard. Um, mm. Have you so these students that are reading that low on below grade level, are they students with an IEP who have specific accommodations, or do they not have sped services?
No, they're in the tier process. That's it.
Okay, so they're in the tier process. I would say that you start accommodating these students. I know it may sound ridiculous, and I would, of course, talk to your administrator about it as well. But based off of your observations in the class and what their scores and stuff are, it may be to where you need to start putting in some interventions like sentence stems, and breaking it down a lot. That way you will have this data when it does come to trying to transition them to special, um, that they need these types of things, and you can show what the data shows of before these accommodations, this is how they're performing, and now with these accommodations, this is how they're performing. So it may be to where you may need to start doing that, just so that way, one, you've shown that you have tried everything that you can, and two, you can give ideas to the SPED team when they're creating their accommodations, as to what they truly need. Because if these students are performing that low to the rest of their grade level, then they clearly need additional support. And I think it would be great and beneficial to start that now, just so that way you can see in the future how that may need to go into their IEPs when they hopefully do get some services.
Okay. And then one thing that kind of sparked me when you were giving me your response. So I had a training with um, a DSC person from the district, and so she was coming in about people that co-teach, and
Mhm.
so she was saying that it's not differentiation if you give your SPED students a graphic organizer, and the rest of your class also gets that same graphic organizer. But then it's like, but that whole class fits in that same category. So how much more can I level it down for it to be differentiation according to that?
I would say, based off of what you told me earlier, you already have 3 blocks, and they're already seem to be based off of ability. That's what it kind of seems like, is that you've grouped them that way. I would say that if your third block is based into disability level, then that is your differentiation for these students, because you're not doing the same thing for this group of students as you are for your gifted students. That's where
Right.
I would say your differentiation is coming in, is between your blocks. Since you don't have a class with, like, one class with 26 students that have those various ability levels, you're right, that would look different. But since you've already split them according to their ability levels, I would say that that is your differentiation. That is how you're changing what you're teaching. And I think it's okay at that point, like you were saying, to give that whole class of 14 students who are really struggling that graphic organizer if that's what they all need. I think that is differentiation, because you're not giving that to your gifted students, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yes. Okay. That does actually make sense. Okay. So my takeaways are to utilize timers and students to hold me accountable for getting to small groups.
Mhm.
And of course, chunking my time to make sure that just that mini lesson and then the rest of the time is used for small groups. Um, and then data before and after teacher created accommodations for those students that don't have those IEPs, and that differentiation is already happening by my blocks because it's grouped by ability levels in my classes.
Yes. So definitely don't be too hard on yourself about your differentiation. It sounds like you definitely already are. And it sounds like we just need to continue with those interventions and put those in place, especially for that class. And there was something else I was going to say too. Um, when it comes to your planning, I think it would be great for when you do have those plans for your small groups to put like the smallest amount of plans for your whole group lesson and focus more so on your small group instruction plans, because I think that would also force you to, really be like, I put so much work into these plans for these small groups, so I've got to get them done. I feel like that might be helpful too. That was a last minute thought that I had.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Small group instruction plans, prioritize. Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
So that covers my concerns that I wanted to address with you. And I cannot wait to have my students hold me accountable. I might actually try that this week.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Wait to hear how it goes for you.
Yes, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yes, you're so welcome. I hope to meet with you again soon.